Hello everyone, welcome to the Scumdog's Kennel. I'm your host, Chris Williams, and in today's Cryptid Corner mini-episode, we have stories involving horned werewolves and silver disc UFOs. Let's get into the first story titled, Horned Werewolf-Like Entity Stalks Witness Through Rural Gloucestershire Fields, and hear exactly what this Englishman actually encountered. It sounds like a cross between a devil and a werewolf. Let's get into it now. In December 2018, a young witness in rural Gloucestershire, England, reported a terrifying late-night encounter while walking home through fields near a hilltop overlook. What began as a quiet walk after meeting friends turned into a close-range sighting of a tall, skinny, dog-headed figure with horns, followed by a second sighting near the witness's own home. Very interesting. Let's also read basically the details of this story with the case file. Date December 7th, 2018. Time approximately 2 o'clock a.m. Location rural Gloucestershire, United Kingdom, near a hilltop referred to as Coal Peak for privacy. Setting countryside lane, small wooded area, fields, private garden, and driveway. Witness CBD. Reported by CBD. Phenomenon horned dog-headed werewolf-like entity. Environmental conditions vary, cold night, clear sky, stars visible, low light, rural conditions. Sounds very interesting from the details. It sounds like this is a mammoth of a monster. Let's actually read the witness report now and hear the story in the witness's own words that he wrote down for us all to hear, folks. Let's get into it now and see where this particular werewolf story goes. What the witness felt, and how maybe he's even dealt with it since, how it affected him, perhaps, and what he looks forward in the future. Let's get into it now. I don't even know how to explain this because I'm not the sort of person who believes in ghosts, devils, demons, or cryptids, but this experience has changed my mind drastically. I live in the United Kingdom, out in the countryside. My house is on a moderately busy lane with a lot of fields behind it. About 5 minutes up the road, there is a hill, which I'll call Coal Peak for privacy reasons. It is in Gloucestershire, about 6 fields away from my house, and roughly a 5-minute walk from the road. The hill above town. My two mates and I often go up to the peak because it overlooks our town. From there you can see the Servin Bridge and a place called Stonehouse. They smoke weed, but I don't, so I can't blame what happened on that. So he saw something there, folks. He was on drugs, and while his two mates, he admits, do smoke weed, he was not, and what affected him, he can't blame on anything else but his own, I guess, basically healthy lifestyle. Let's read on. We sat at the top of for about an hour, just chilling. Around 2 o'clock a.m., we decided to head home. My mates took the roadway because it leads to the town where they live. I decided to take the field way home because I didn't want to walk down the road by myself after they turned off. The walk through the trees. To get to the fields, I had to walk through a small wooded area for about 1 or 2 minutes. It was pitch black with the moon shining and stars in the sky. As I said, I don't usually get scared, so I wasn't too bothered. I was about 2/3 of the way through the woods when I heard sticks cracking to my left. It sounded like something heavy was walking there. I glanced over and assumed it was probably a fox or a badger. I reached the gate that leads into the fields toward my house. I opened it and stepped through, closed it behind me, and started walking. So, he didn't think anything was going on. Too much, folks, but apparently that was about to change. The thing at the gate, that's when I heard something I will never forget. It sounded like a Minecraft creeper, but much deeper, larger, and heavier. I turned around and saw something standing on the path. It was about 6 feet tall, skinny, with a dog-like head and horns. At first, I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me, so I just stood there staring at it, hoping it would vanish. It didn't. After about 5 seconds, it started walking slowly, closer and closer until it reached the gates. Then it just stood there, almost like it didn't know what to do next. I was sweating. My vision felt red, and I thought I was going to have an anxiety attack. I slowly walked across the field, trying to figure out what the hell I had just seen. About halfway across the field, I looked back. It was gone. Now, this is interesting, folks. The fact that it sounded like a Minecraft creeper is one thing, folks, and the fact that this entity didn't seemingly know how to open a gate. It sounds like there's a few details we have to discuss later on, folks, and we'll get to them because they sound good. But let's get back to the story, okay? Back at the house, I felt a huge sense of relief and thought I could finally calm down and just walk home. That was what I was hoping for. I reached the last field before my house. I could see the house, and I knew all I had to do was jump over the fence, and I would be in my garden. I got to the fence, hopped over, and immediately felt safe and secure. Then, as I was walking across my garden toward the back door, the driveway light came on behind me. That light only comes on if it detects motion, or if it is very windy and a branch sways in front of, I presume, something, folks, in front of the sensor. What was in front of the sensor is something we have to discuss. Was it this entity? As I was saying, folks, this entity, maybe it knew about Minecraft creepers, and that's why it knew, well, to make that sound, only basically making it deeper and scarier. Because that's something I want to say there, folks. But there's more. But let's finish that up after we finish this guy's story. Follow-up details from the witness. On the night of December 7th, 2018, it was very cold. That is why we only stayed for an hour at the peak. The first sighting could possibly have been a man in a mask, but the chances of that are rarely and very, very slim. I've lived here for about 15 years, and I pretty much know about 90% of the town. I've never heard of anyone talking about scary signs or anything along those lines. The thing about the cars was definitely not a man in a mask. Or a man in a mask. The horns were not small. They looked like horns with a few smaller horns coming off of them. I don't know what it was, but I definitely don't want to see it again. So it sounded less like horns and more like antlers is what this guy, well, sounds like he saw to me, folks. Now, this entity also didn't know how to open a gate. Is this because it was some sort of spirit or maybe some sort of interdimensional interloper? Because it reminds me of various MIB encounters where MIB just don't know how to eat food or do anything like a human. And the fact that it knew or it sounded like a thing from a video game, that's another odd detail that just stands out to me. And we'll discuss that a little later, folks, because we have to read the next article. Broad daylight, U.S. Air Force Silver Disc hovered over Santa Monica freeway traffic. And let's get into this UFO story, which is probably another interesting one. Let's get into it now. In early December 1980, a witness, his mother, and what he describes as hundreds of motorists allegedly observed a silver disc-shaped craft hovering over traffic in Santa Monica, California. The object reportedly remained motionless in broad daylight before accelerating away at extraordinary speed, leaving the witness with a theory that ties the sighting to presidential UFO secrecy and public disclosure. Maybe. And we'll discuss that point as well, folks. Now, here's the case file. Date, early December 1980. Time, approximately 9 o'clock a.m. Location, Santa Monica, California, near freeway access while en route to Beverly Hills. Setting, heavy morning traffic, motorists waiting to enter the freeway. Witnesses, male witness, his mother, and numerous motorists. Report by witness, account submitted to Phantoms and Monsters. Phenomenon, broad daylight, silver disc-shaped UFO with U.S. Air Force marking. Environmental conditions, broad daylight, clear enough for an extended visual observation. So, it sounds like this guy got a good look at this UFO, along with hundreds, but why is he the only one who seemingly has basically reported this incident? Hopefully, a few more of these people will step forward because I'd love to hear their story, their accounts of this particular case as well. But that is seemingly sometimes what goes on here, folks. And the fact that he can't really corroborate their accounts because no one else who's basically also come forward is another problem. Either way, it sounds like a typical, UFO, folks. And we'll discuss that as well. But let's read on. I had a sighting in broad daylight in 1980 around 9 o'clock a.m. in early December. My mother and hundreds of other motorists witnessed it as well. We were driving to visit my father at his work in Beverly Hills and waiting to get onto the freeway in Santa Monica. Traffic was barely moving, slow as molasses, so everyone had plenty of time to look around. That is when we saw what appeared to be a classic silver disc hovering above the area. The initial sighting. The object was completely still, maybe about 150 feet above us. It did not drift, wobble, or circle. It just hovered there in broad daylight for what I would estimate was 10 solid minutes. Because traffic was moving so slowly, we had a very good look at it. This was not a quick flash in the sky. It was right there, visible to us and to many other motorists. As I said, folks, that's good. But as I said earlier, why didn't anyone else come forward with this story? Or is it possible that this story has been reported by other people on that day, and we just don't, or no one just realizes it? Either way, let's move on. The craft's appearance. The craft was silver and disc-shaped. What really stood out was the underside. Stenciled underneath it were the words U.S. Air Force. It looked official. My mother and I both saw the marking, and we assumed it had to be one of ours. At the time, that seemed like the only reasonable explanation. Then, after hovering motionless for about 10 minutes, the object suddenly shot off toward the southwest like a bullet. I've never seen anything move that fast in my life. It was shocking. This corroborates other stories, folks, where people basically witnessed UFOs, but underneath, stenciled, was basically property of the U.S. Air Force as well. So, could this story basically prove, like the other stories, that maybe the U.S. government has its hands on, well, UFO, or basically even, I guess, man-made, basically UFO technology? Perhaps. I can't be for sure. But let's read the next part now. The witness's theory. Over the years, I have thought a lot about what we saw and why it might have been there. I do not know how familiar you are with Jimmy Carter and the issue of UFOs, but he is on record as having had a UFO sighting of his own. Carter was no flake. He was a former naval officer with technical training related to a nuclear, work. He tried to get answers about UFOs during his presidency, but he was apparently stonewalled. When you think about it, it is unacceptable that the nation's most powerful elected leader could be blocked from declassifying something the public has a right to know about. Indeed. What I came to believe is that Carter may have ordered a captured or back-engineered craft marked with official Air Force insignia to fly over a heavily populated area where thousands of people were sitting in traffic. Maybe the purpose was to make people ask questions that he himself could not get answered. Indeed, because he couldn't basically release the information. Maybe he ordered, for one of these UFOs to be seen by the public. Maybe. I can believe that, folks. But let's move on to the next part of the story and see where this goes. Another presidential UFO reference. There's another incident that has always stayed with me. Back in 1982, when E.T. was all the rage, President Reagan invited Steven Spielberg to the White House for a showing of the film. Afterward, Reagan reportedly said that some people in the room know how true the movie was. Whether he was joking or not, it makes you wonder, indeed. The Santa Monica object looked official. It had U.S. Air Force on it, but the way it hovered and then shot away was nothing like any aircraft I have ever seen. So, could this basically be U.S. property that this man saw or not? Or was it possible that this is a UFO controlled by alien beings and just happened to have, basically U.S. Air Force written on it, folks? But either way, there were other stories of people seeing UFOs, and indeed it basically said underneath that was basically, it said U.S. Air Force under it. So, if anything, folks, I think this technology could be alien, but maybe it's in the hands of the U.S. government. Either maybe reverse engineered, or at the very least, maybe somehow this thing was, given to us, or we got our hands on it. We basically stenciled U.S. Air Force on it, and we were able to fly it. And not much more than that. But I can't be for sure. Now, I mentioned earlier with that horned, or basically antlered werewolf, because the witness says it had horns, and horns growing out of the horns, so it sounds more like it had antlers rather than horns. I mentioned this entity made sounds like a Minecraft creeper. That makes me think that maybe this entity was influenced by popular culture, maybe basically by the witness himself. He knows what a Minecraft creeper sounds like, and somehow this entity used that knowledge and fear to manifest some sort of sound that sounded like a more demonic version of a Minecraft creeper making noises and howling. But it also didn't seemingly know how to open the gate, which makes me think that, maybe it is an alien, and truly alien, and doesn't know how to do it. Either way, folks, we're now at the end, so please go subscribe to my YouTube channel, Read Comics That Are Bad For You. You can use the YouTube link down below in descriptions or the chat to go subscribe me. Hit that like button for me. Make sure you're still subscribed. Leave some comments down below. Hit that bell for notifications. Make sure at the part of the bell they give you all future notifications, and please share this video out. I'm Chris Williams from the Scumdogs Kennel. Thank you all for joining me. I'll be back again tomorrow with another great video, so be sure to come back again then. Until next time, folks, I'll see you all again soon.